Here we are with the center section, wing skins. The back part's supposed to be connected. I cut out those little parts. That's for where the landing gear is going to go. And the question here was, where do you actually put this on? I mean, how do you make sure you're in the right location? How do you key it into the right place? The width kind of makes sense, but it's really hard to make sure where things are going to go because you can't screw it up. You got one shot. And then I realized, genius that I am, these are components that are going to be for the wheel pants, the oleo struts. And so I decided, why couldn't I just slide those in place and they would act as keys, kind of, and allow me at least a better approximation and even positioning of the covering of the skin. And so that was my huge, amazing innovation. I thought that'll at least give me a fighting chance for, okay, so that's approximately where it's supposed to be. And I test fit this a bunch of times, and if I did it like this and I pulled down towards the right there, I ended up with something that matched up with the fuselage really well too. And then I come down around the side and then put those together like so. So that's kind of the plan. And as it turns out, we'll see how it works, but I think it works pretty well. So I add some glue along here, along the ribs, along the spars, and this is the bottom. I'm starting with the bottom first. And I put some glue around where the landing gear is going to go. I don't know if it actually touches that or not, but I'm just making sure I also don't fill the hole either. But I put this on both sides, get it all where the paper is going to connect, and kind of smooth it out a little bit. Because I figure if we start with the bottom, and I've test fitted enough, if that's on straight, then I should be able to sort of pull the midsection around on the top and make it match pretty dang well. I don't know if it even touches there actually, but really the ribs and the spars and those are the most important pieces because you do want it to connect, to actually attach. So then, once I got some glue on here where I think it should go, then I go ahead and take the skin and pop it on there. And then once it's on, before it dries in place, then I key it with those oleo strut pieces. I get it close because you can see where the holes are, where the slots are. But just to make sure, I put these guys in. And that worked really well because now I can grab this and I'm pulling it towards the right and I'm smoothing it down. And if I know that if I pull it to the right and evenly pull it and then smooth everybody down and make sure that I'm touching my glue on those pieces, I think we're good. I think life is grand. And again, what this means is you've got to test fit, and then test fit some more, and then put it away and come back the next day and test fit. Because once these are on, they're on, and they're very difficult to get off. You end up ripping the paper more often than not. So you got to make sure that it's all going together. And all I'm doing is putting pressure along where there's the glue joints and making sure that everything is in contact. And the back part with those little tails, that just flaps around because that's going to go onto the fuselage. Then I started to panic. I was doing such a good job. I thought, wait a second, I hope I didn't glue the stupid oleo struts in. So once I've got this down, I pulled these struts out and they came right out, no problem. So I was not in any danger. But those things go through your mind. And now you let this dry a little bit, and the next step will be to pull it around to the top. But it looks pretty good. And with those on there, everything is fine. So now, and again, these were connected at first, but they kind of broke apart when I was test fitting. But notice things are lined up, like where those teeth are going to go. They're lined up. Everything looks even. When I roll these skins down, you'll see that they do match up pretty well. That's centered, it looks to me. The bottom part, the back part, looks like it's centered going down the middle. That edge looks like it's right on that rib, same with that edge. So things actually came together nice. And then I test fit the fuselage just to see how it's going to look. And then I pull these pieces in and sort of slide them in place. But I want to show you, look at the back. Look at how that connects up there. How that's going to come together just where those fillets, bottom of the fillets are supposed to go. I mean, that absolutely lines up like a treat. Pretty amazing. Um, and again, the artist who did this rendering, man, what a great artist, because these are really neat looking skins. They look like what you'd want to airbrush something, make it look very real. It's very cool. But now I'm just making sure that if I pull tight enough, am I going to get this around? And with pushing the paper down, you can see there's no white seam at the trailing edge. It's lining up. It's going to look good. And then the wing panels, of course, will just fit on the edges on either side. So, looking good. And those those lighter pieces in the middle, in the center section, those are going to be where the fillets go. So I decided to leave the fuselage on to give me a way to sort of make sure things are going all right, make sure I'm lining things up. Very carefully put some glue on the root tip, on the root rib, so they don't glue onto the fuselage. So, but as long as I pull this down and make it line up, I should be just fine. And again, these pieces are supposed to be connected at the back, but mine broke because of that very thin little piece of paper, and it didn't seem to make any difference. It seems to be just fine. So now I'm making sure that my trailing edge matches up, which it does, and I'm making sure that everything is lined up, and again, just running your thumb around, making sure that you're getting contact. Something else that happened with this model that was glorious was that the leading edge, one of the first models I ever built, where the leading edge did not crinkle. I don't have any places on that leading edge that it looks like it's bunched up or bent or dented or anything like that. The paper must really be nice. It just rolled right over kind of the way you want it to, and you end up with a nice curve, and there is no dimpling, which is great because there's no leading edge really, but it turns out really nice. So here I'm making sure, again, grabbing this and pulling back and down, because I'm trying to make sure that I get it lined up in the back. If there's slight misalignment, if you have a tiny little sliver of white showing through, it's not the end of the world. You can touch it with glue, or you can cut it off a little bit, as long as the overall look is okay. And again, this is going so well, and it seems to be fitting. Everything seems to be fitting so well that, like, the wing fillet will be great in there. So I just, again, pushing down, making sure everything is smooth, making sure that I got good contact. And then I'll take the fuselage off just to make sure it didn't glue, because it's easier to put the outside skins on without the fuselage on there. But there you go. There's the center section. And if you get the center section right, the rest should be relatively easy. If you get it wrong, you're in big trouble. Now, what I didn't do this time was connect the skins together before putting them on like I did on the fuselage. Turns out there's only one little part on these skins that needs to really be tight, and that's near the trailing edge, because there's a piece that'll go over the joint after you put it together that will hide any kind of problems. So here's a wing skin, cut out the part for the lights. I colored the inside because when it rolls over, you can look up inside and see the white, so I made sure that was good. These slots are cut, or slits are cut, so I put some color on those and colored all the edges. This is the landing light, and it's really well done. It looks like a real landing light. Again, the rendering is cool. It's hard to believe that's flat in there. One part of those is slightly longer. The one that's down, that one right there, is actually a little bit longer than that one. That gives you the orientation that you're supposed to fit it in. So the longer one goes near the wing root. And this is a little bead, a little plastic bead. I bought a bunch of them from Michael's. I have a lifetime supply. But what I do is put those into that piece, and it looks like an actual lens. Now, these can be butt joint, these little slots, but I find I need a little bit of tab on them. So what I've done is taken tabs that have the right color. I copied a piece off of the actual model. You see, there's a greenish one there, and the other one is the underside color. Did that so that's what I'll end up putting those on. So here, before I go any further, I found out by putting the other wing together, the best thing to do is go ahead and put this light in here, or this light fixture. And all you do is slide it in, make sure you got it oriented so that the shorter one is going towards the outside. And then make sure that it's lined up. So make sure that, I mean, a couple of things. Make sure that the airfoil part in the front is touching in the center of the cardboard leading edge. And then also look at it straight on. I'm doing that right now to make sure that it's got to be in line with everything else, with the spars. Then I put a little blob of glue on there, a much too big a blob of glue. Shouldn't be that much. And then I take this little tiny plastic lens, and there's an earthquake. And then, that's my head hitting this stupid light. Take this little tiny plastic bead and just set it right in the center. And what that's going to do is just give you some three-dimensional look to it. It's clear. And when it's all together and as a clear plastic piece over the front, top and all this, it will just look like there's an actual light bulb there, or an actual lens. I think it's a cool little detail. So you can see it from the top or the bottom, you'll see it protruding. I don't know if it's supposed to protrude that much. Maybe it's just supposed to be a convex piece. There's the other side. That's what it looks like when it's done. So it looks pretty cool, I think. I think that looks nice. So now I put these tabs on by putting some glue on one edge first. So I'm very carefully putting glue along here so it's not gluing them together. All I want to do is put a little bit of glue on one side, put my makeshift covering over that, make sure it's the color side out, and just put it on instead of right down the middle between those two. So you want one side to be glued and be tight, because then you're going to pull and tug them all together and glue them later so they actually get rid of that line. Do the same thing with the one that's for the lower wing. What those do is give you kind of the perfect angle of that wingtip. The wingtips have to go down a little bit. And if they go down, because of the shape of the wingtip, you've got to make a slit there to get a clean angle to make it look really nice, which it does, by the way. It looks really good. So make sure those are tight on there. Let them dry for a little bit so they won't move. Then I tug the pieces together. That piece is a little bit long, so I just cut it off, no problem. And so you can't see this that well. I didn't get this that good a camera angle, but see that? It's open, but if I pull like that, and I can pull it shut, and as I pull it shut and glue it like that, that automatically causes that tip to make the right geometry so that it'll fit really nice. You got to trust me, but it works really well, just like that. So what you do is put a little bit of glue. I'm just testing to make sure that it's actually doing what I want it to do. And it is, believe me. You can't see it, but it's actually happening. Put some glue on there, and I'm squeezing it shut. And that looks really good. And again, if you can see later on we put the wingtip on, you'll see. But it is now at an angle, and that line is pretty well hidden too. It doesn't look terrible. It doesn't stand out like a sore thumb. So do the same thing to the bottom one. A little bit of glue underneath where it's going to come together on that tab. And then you squitch them together and then hold them down with the tweezers or your thumb. I have better luck. I start with my thumb and forefinger, so I'm squeezing right there. And then I let it kind of sit for a couple seconds. And then once I let go, I make sure it doesn't move. And as long as it doesn't move, I squeeze it with my tweezers. And that kind of locks it in place. So there you go. And you can actually go through with a burnishing tool and kind of flatten those down a little bit if you wish. In my case, I don't think I did that. They look just fine. So now I'm just testing fitting this and see if you fit this right to the edge. That edge I'm working on, that's the only part. That part on the bottom have to be really tight. These can actually have a little bit of wiggle room because you're going to put a component that goes over those and like a piece that goes over the connections, I guess, on the real airplane. I'm just testing to make sure that it all looks good, which it does. The one spar that's for the aileron is a little out there, but I think it'll be okay. So now we got to address this. So what I do with this is I go ahead and I take a piece of clear and I cut it out. I just cut out a rectangle and um, make it a little bit bigger than it needs to be. I haven't found real good glue to put this stuff in because this is overhead projector material, so it's very floppy, but it's still plastic, and so it doesn't glue real well, but it glues enough, especially when you're gonna then put this around those ribs. It's gonna hold in place just fine. Sort of the bend on the paper, the springiness of the paper is gonna keep this piece in. Especially once you get it all together. I have had them fall apart on me, but not once the wing is actually connected. Once the skin is on, then they're pretty much locked in place. So I go ahead and put this guy down, trying not to get a bunch of goop on it. If I do, and it dries like that, it usually dries pretty clear, but on something clear, you can see it. I just say it's, when it's flying, those are bugs that it hit. Everybody worked on airplanes knows that they have bugs all over the leading edge. So, and you're in the South Pacific, I mean, come on. So all I do now is use my finger, or I use a handle of a paintbrush, whatever, that's kind of fat and round, to try to make sure that's together. And as long as you keep it rolled over like that, it's going to stay in that position. So right now I'm at the point where it's drying a bit, and now I'm going to just sort of put it in place. So now it's sitting there drying a little bit. And now what I decided to do was curve over these wingtips. So I have my little burnishing tool, my little dabbing tool. The butt end of a paintbrush would work too, handle. But I'm just rolling these over, trying to give it a little bit of suggestion. I don't want it to be flat. And you can see it starts to get a little shadow in there. Same thing with the leading edges. Just give them a little bit so that when it comes together, again, you don't want flat pieces coming down. You want it to sort of have a shape. A lot of people, I've never done this, they'll roll pieces of thin paper and put them in there so that acts as a contour and like an interior. And that helps hold them that way. In my estimation, this seems to work just fine. But maybe I'll try that other method at some other point. But this seemed to work pretty good. Now I'm burnishing these to make sure they're kind of have a curve on them. And then when I fold this over, lo and behold, it lines up pretty well. And with a little bit of glue, and it's squeezing gently, that's going to hold together like a little clamshell. And you're going to have something that looks good when you glue it together. So that's going to be okay. I mean, I'll adjust that a little bit. See if you adjust the overlap. It looks good. That's going to look just fine. That's gonna work. See, look at that. And you got a nice end that doesn't look just sandwiched. So, the moment of truth and or consequences. You take some glue and you start putting it on the. I started from the top in this case, because I wanted the top to be the part that really works, that really is perfect. And I just put on the top first, and then I deal with the bottom. But I get this all together, get my glue everywhere, and then I very carefully start by gluing it to that trailing edge, because that's where it has to line up nicely, and you can use all those parts to sort of get it in the right place. Slide it around, squeeze it shut, and then you just walk it up around the rest of the joint. I'm pulling down a little bit till it kind of snaps in place. Give it a little bit of thumb pressure, and then I start carefully tapping down along the spars where the wing is. And I'm just trying to make sure the paper starts to glue there. I don't want to make it real obvious, but I want it to glue. I want it to end up being stuck there. So once that gets started, you let this dry a ways. And by the way, I did pre-form the wing a little bit, the skin, so that it was curved, so it would go over this pretty easily. But you just let that dry. Once that's dried, then you're going to pull the bottom side down and under, and it should work fine. And again, if you do this slowly, you won't get any crimp in that leading edge. Just making sure that I'm getting contact where I need contact. Spend a lot of time just sort of tapping those things together and squeezing them a bit, just to make sure that it's good. And like I said, if anything's not quite right, you can fix it later. Like if the skin is in a slightly different place you don't want it, like on that trailing edge where the aileron is, that's okay. Now when I fold it over underneath, you look and you see it's gonna fit. And I tested it first. So you go ahead and do the same thing. once the other side is dried pretty well. You go ahead and you glue all these pieces carefully, all those little teeth, and then you glue all of those spars. Someday I'm going to try putting in foam in between the spars and sanding things down so that you don't have any air. Because in this model, because of the camouflage and the way the printing is done, the coloring is done, it's not so bad. You don't see these spars too much at all, if at all. It looks pretty good. But I know Neil on Neil's paper models, he'll take just a piece of paper and glue it over the spars as an extra sheet, like of just typing paper. And that kind of distributes the weight and makes it so you don't see the spar quite as obviously. Maybe I'll try that on a model soon and see if that works. But roll this over. I'm pulling down and sort of diagonally down to the trailing edge, trying to lock those in place. Again, that piece where my right thumb is, that's the most important part. If that's together, you're good. Notice my left thumb, and now I'm trying to kind of work things back to the aileron joint. And I'm just sort of sliding and pulling as I go. And I'm getting to the tip. I know the very tip doesn't have glue, which is fine. But I'm just kind of pulling it down. I got a good joint down there. I got a good joint all along where it connects to the center section. Everything's turned out really well. And you just keep kind of tapping this thing until you've got it where you want it. And because you don't want it to balloon, because the paper will kind of balloon up if it's not glued down. And then it will look funny. It'll have a real thick wing. Or it'll look strange, especially looking at it from end on or from the leading edge. So I'm just making sure that it actually is gluing. Notice my clear window looks fine. It's locked in place. It's not going anywhere. That's going to be just fine. Just kind of squishing and rubbing and making sure it's going to look good, which it does, trust me. Looks pretty nice. Then I went back and got the end. Again, because it's pre-formed, all I got to do is put a little glue in there and wipe off the excess, and then just kind of tap them together. And they're making sure there's a couple of spars that need to have glue on them. And I just put them together, wipe off the excess like so, and I'm just squeezing the very, very edges, because again, you don't want to squeeze it shut and flat. You want it to have form. You want it to have volume in it. But once I got it good, see, that's looking pretty nice. And if you're not quite perfect, you can sand it a little bit. You can add a little paint. You can do anything to hide it, and it will look just fine. No one's going to stare directly at your wingtip. So a lot of this is a little bit of hocus pocus. In this case, again, this model is so nice so far. The next biggest hurdle is going to be the wheel pants and then the canopy. And she'll be good. But look at that light. That looks really neat. Clear. Don't think there's any bird droppings on it or any bugs. That one turned out nice. And the other one does have some bugs on it. Anyway, there's the wing. And then it's exciting because you can just take the fuselage and stick it on there. Fuselage fits like a glove. The next step will be to actually glue this together. I'm just doing this so we can see how it looks. But look at how that back end matches up beautifully to where the fillets are going to go. Looks really, really nice. And then just looking at the whole airplane, just get a good look for how she's going to look. It's very pretty. It does look like a Dauntless to me. My son thinks it looks like a Stuka because of the wheel pants, but it doesn't have so much cranked wing on it. It's a neat machine, and the colors are cool. That really does makes it interesting. You can see it sitting in the tree line at Rabal or something. It's pretty cool. The bottom's looking nice. The whole thing looks good. It's all straight and clean. I'm really, really enjoying it. It's turning out really well.